In this example, I'm going to show you how to click and drag and move the camera around. But also we want to limit how far we can move this camera. Because the question was, I want to be able to move the camera, but I don't want to be able to move it more than a certain distance away from my character. And so that's what we're going to do, and it really isn't that difficult. I created a new 2D project, just an empty project, and I have a couple of images in there. I've got this sort of spiral thing in there, and I'll drag it in and show you why I have that. It just makes it easier to see how the camera is moving in this scene. And then I also have our little favorite alligator guy, and he's going to be our character, so we know that we don't move too far away from that guy. So I'm going to drag this little spiral thing in here, and I'm going to resize it. And again, this isn't really doing much of anything besides showing us how far away we're moving. It's just an easy way to see what's going on. And I'll drag our little character and stick him here, and I'll give him actually a higher order in the layer. We'll just make him a 1, so he's always in front. And if we look at our game view, there he is. And what we're going to do is we're going to put some code in here. We'll put the script on the camera, and I'll be able to click and drag the camera and have it follow the mouse a little bit. But we won't ever be able to get that far away from our character. So I'm going to create a new script. We can call it Camera Mover. And I will put that onto the main camera, so that's what we're moving. And I'll open it up. And there's a couple of variables that we're going to need. We want to know our target, which is our little guy. And that's the thing that's going to sort of anchor how far away this camera can move. So I have a public transform target. And we want to know how far away from that thing we can get. So we'll just do a float max distance. And that should be good enough for now. So what we're going to do is inside of update, we're going to watch for the mouse button down, because we don't want to have this thing. If you want to move it all the time, that's fine. But the way I'm going to code this is I just want to make sure when somebody clicks and drags, that's when the camera is going to move. So we're going to check for that event. So we'll say if input dot get mouse button down 0. So we're looking for that left mouse button. Then we got to do something. And this is on the event where the mouse button goes down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for two things. I want to look for when the button goes down, and I also want to look for the events when it's just pressed. So when the button goes down, we're going to keep track of where that mouse position is. And then when we are dragging, we're going to know how far we've actually dragged. And that's going to be used to move our camera. So on the mouse button down, we want to capture all of our initial positions. The initial position of where we pressed the mouse button, and also the initial position of where the camera is. So those are the two things we want to save off as soon as somebody clicks down. So we'll do that by start press. And actually, we'll make some new variables, a vector3 start press. This is where the mouse button goes down, and a vector3 camera start position. All right. So our start press is going to equal. So we have all these different coordinate systems, and I explained it in another video. I think the one where we were talking about mobile touches, but we have our world coordinate system, which is where everything exists in the entire world space. We have a coordinate system that just says how where things are positioned relative to the camera. And then we have another coordinate system, which is the pixel values that the mouse looks at when it's just on the screen. So we have all these three different things, and we got to convert them to similar units. So I'll say camera.main, and then when this is the function we can use to convert, we can say screen, which is the mouse point, to world point. And we're going to do the input dot mouse position. So that's going to convert where our mouse currently is into world coordinate system. And our camera start position is going to equal our transform dot position. and that's already in world coordinate system. So that's the, our transform.position, like we've been using for everything else of moving and using the arrow keys to move things around. That's how we're going to figure out where our camera is. Okay, so that's on the mouse button down. Now, else if input.get mouse button 0, then we can do something else. So this is essentially the case of a drag. So the mouse button has already been pressed. The down is on that first event as soon as you press it down, and the this just says it's down and we're dragging. So when we're dragging, we're gonna need to update the position of our camera and move it around. So we'll say vector3 position equals camera dot main dot screen to world point input dot mouse position. So again, we're just getting the location of where our mouse is in the world, and then we'll say vector3 new position equals new vector3. So this is where we are going to move the camera to. So we'll say as we're dragging, we know where we're at now is where the mouse is. We know where we started the mouse drag, and we know where the camera started. So we're going to calculate the new position based on all that. So new vector3, and it's camera start position.x plus our delta, which is position.x minus start press.x. That's our x coordinate, comma. This is going to be our y, which is going to look very similar. And these are all just going to turn to y's for our y component. And then our z is going to just be camera start position.z. We're not changing our z's. So that's going to be our new position. We're taking where we started, where the camera started, adjusting for how far we dragged, and this will handle if we're moving left or right or up or down based on these things. So that's going to be our new position. Now, before we update our position, we have to double check and see if we are within the threshold of our max distance that we're going to set in the GUI here in a sec. So before we actually set our transform.position equal to new position, we just need to check the distance between the 2 points. So if vector2.distance of target position, right? Because we're concerned about where our character is, new position. So if that distance is less than our max distance, then we can go ahead and update the position of the camera. And that's really it. That's how we're going to do this. And again, all we're doing is calculating the positions of where the mouse is moving to. We're moving the camera over there and then calculating the distance between that camera and our player and seeing if it fits within our rules. So if we go back into Unity, on our main camera, we've got our target, which is going to be our little character, and our max distance, I don't know, I'll just set this to 1. I have no idea if that's a lot or not. So here we are. I can move it over. I can move it. So our max distance of 1 is really not giving us much distance. So let's kind of increase that by, I don't know, 4. So now I can move around 4 units away. And with those circle rings, you can see how far I'm actually moving the camera by just clicking and dragging. And so that's a way to be able to drag the camera around with the mouse, but to also limit how far you can go. So yeah, that's the idea for this one. Move the camera around with the mouse, but also limit to how far you could actually move that, so that you don't get too far away from your character, or that your player doesn't see too much into the future. So yeah.